Hi, and welcome to your tutorial on how to make our big feet birds using clay. These are funky little birds with crazy big eyes and big beaks and clearly big feet as well. So we're going to go through step by step how to create these little creatures. Okay, so you're going to need some basic tools to be able to do this task. The first thing you're going to need is a cloth that's going to be damp, not saturated, just damp. Squeeze all that water out. You also want some basic tools, so something that is rounded. So something like a popsicle stick is fabulous, and another popsicle stick which I've just cut the top off to give me a sharp edge, and also a skewer which is a sharp point. If you've got access to more fancy tools like these ones, great, use them, but otherwise basic popsicle sticks and skewers will do the job for you. These are called wire loop tools and do make life a little bit easier, but the big one that you'll need is that one that's got the rounded flat end, or it's also called a thumb tool as well. Okay, for this project I'm using around 300 grams of clay, and I've divided that in half, so just set aside half of it. I suggest wrapping it up. With the half that you're working on, you want to flatten it into about 1 centimetre to 1.5 centimetres thickness, and also work on your cloth. Don't work on your tabletop because it will stick to your tabletop. If you've got a clay board or something like that, work on that. So flattening it out and then cutting out the shape of the body of the bird. So you can see here I'm using kind of like a leaf shape, which I'll then smooth out. You might want to make it more of a U shape. It's up to you how you want the shape of your body to go. And then I'm just using my skewer or my sharp pointy tool to cut right through that clay and removing all of the excess clay around it. Once I've done that, I'm using my damp hands to smooth out. When you're working with clay, you don't want to add water to the clay. It will cause it to crack. So you need to use your damp cloth to remove the dry clay from your hands and keep your hands moist. That's the best way to work with clay. So you're just smoothing it around and constantly shaping it. The nice thing about clay is that it's very forgiving. You just push and pull it into the shape that you want it to do, always focusing on those edges and smoothing them out as you go. Okay, so I'm now thinking about the head of my bird, and I'm just using the offcut bits of clay from when I did the body. And again, I'm just flattening that out to be about the same thickness as my body. And then I'll cut out the shape of my head, which is going to be kind of a round shape. This is where you need to really think about proportions of your bird. Most birds, their heads are quite small compared to their body size. So do consider the size of the head that you are cutting out. And then again, use your sharp pointy tool to cut it out. Focus on your edges and smooth those out. Okay, so we're now going to join the clay together, and this is really important. You can see here I'm scoring the clay, so the two parts where they join, I need to use my sharp pointy tool to do a crisscross. Crisscross is really important. And then as I'm pushing them together, giving them a little bit of a wiggle to grab. So it's kind of like Velcro. If I was to just put them together and join them and smooth them together like this, as the clay shrinks, it will fall off. So that scoring is really, really super important to do. And then you're just using your finger or your little thumb tool to get into those areas where your fingers don't reach to smooth the clay together. And again, focusing your attention on edges and on joins and smoothing them all out. Again, keep your hands clean and moist as you do this. I'm now going to do the beak. And the beak is again the same as what we've done for the body and the head. I am pushing it a little bit thinner this time, and you can see here I'm rolling into a ball and then I'm squashing it down into an oval shape. And then depending upon how you cut it will determine the shape and the form that your beak takes. So here I'm just continually moving it down, reducing the size of it, squashing it down into the size that I want. I don't want my beak to be oversized, but these are quirky birds, so I am doing a larger beak than would be normal. If you want to keep it smaller, you are welcome to. Here I'm just doing a straight cut, so kind of like a Pac-Man, and you can see as I squeeze that open and smooth off my edges, it starts to form the shape of my beak that I want it to do. If I was to do that cut in more of a U shape, it would give the beak a very different look to just the straight cut towards the center of a circle. So I'm just shaping it down, flattening it down a bit until I'm happy with the shape, and then I will score and join it and smooth it in. process of adding the eyes is quite simple. What you need to do is make 2 eyeballs. So just roll your balls of clay, make sure they're the same size, so do them both together. And then using your thumb to press in an eye socket, we're going to score both the ball and the socket where the eye sits. Give it a little wiggle. We're not going to smooth in this time, so it's really important that we get that Velcro effect happening and that ball sitting in that eye socket really well. And then you're going to use something to press in the inside of the eye. So it could be the end of a pen, the skewer, anything that makes kind of a round impression will do. And then again, just checking everything, smoothing off. I'm just putting nostrils onto my beak here. And then we're going to look at how to do the wings. So the wings, I'm just grabbing the beak that I made earlier that I didn't use, and I'm just shaping it down into the spine of the wing, and then I'm using my tool to create like feathers on the under surface of it. And then I'm scoring it and attaching it on. I'm just making my other wing at the same time before I fully join them, just to make sure they're the same. Okay, so just pressing in the feathers underneath the spine of the wing, scoring, and again, I'm just pressing in that top section, and I'm just working on my cloth so I don't squash that eyeball in, and I'm just joining in where the wing would attach into the shoulders, not the rest of the wing, otherwise it won't look like the wing can separate from the body. So you're just smoothing in that one section and ensuring that your scoring is nice and solid to hold the rest of the wing in place. I'm just smoothing in some areas again, so I'm constantly looking at every angle of my bird and checking what needs smoothing down, what needs blending in. So our bird at this point is pretty much made, and it's about adding details and textures. There are so many different ways to do this. You can see here I'm using a wire loop tool to press in my soft small feathers. I'm using my sharp pointy tool or my skewer to do little mark making things around the eyes. And just adding details in. I want you to think about the different textures of feathers, so small fluffy feathers to long strong feathers. So here I'm using my thumb tool and pressing it in to make the longer feathers that would appear around the body. Always check that your feathers are going in the right direction and that you're not doing them back to front. And also think about your edges as well as to whether you want to apply texture on your edges. We're going to be adding feathers into the tails and also into other areas. So you need to use your skewer to put a hole into your clay before we fire it. So you need to consider the direction that you want your feathers to go. So if you want the tail sticking upright, you need to make sure that you press your skewer in at the right angle. If you want your feathers pointing down, make sure that you are inserting your skewer in the right angle as well. Here I'm just adding some details into the eyeballs as well, so adding like an iris around the eye. You can choose to do that, so you can start to add other details in if you want. You can add other clay pieces as well. So for example, if you want a piece around the beak, you can do that. Okay, so we're making the big feet part of our bird. Now this is what balances our bird out. So we need to make sure that we've got the weight at the bottom. So divide the rest of your clay into half, and one half of that will be like a rock or the base that our feet stand on. So just flatten that out and then take your other half, divide that in half again, and this is going to make your 2 feet. The best way to do this is to roll a ball, shape it into kind of like a teardrop shape, so slightly flat. And you can see I'm just putting it into a bit of a teardrop shape here. Make 2 of those so that we know that they're equal. We work on both together so we get the size right. And you can see I'm just drying my hands off again, so always make sure that your hands are moist. See how they fit on your rock, and then you're going to cut your toes. So you just need your sharp edge, whether you use your skewer or one of your sharp edge tools, and cutting 3 toes all the way through. And then we're going to take our damp hands, we're going to smooth out those toes and just move them around just to shape them off. And then we're going to add some toenails. If you want sharp pointy toes, make them sharp and pointy, that's up to you. I've got rounded toes on my guy. And then I'm just using a rounded tool. So it could be the end of again, your skewer, a pen, anything that's flat, and just giving him toenails. So I'm just pressing them in there and then again just shaping as I need to and smoothing them off. I'm going to place them on my rock, and to do this I'm going to score, attach, wiggle, but I'm not really going to smooth down this time because I want it to look like those feet are standing on the rock, not actually part of the rock. So the final part we need to do is the legs. So the legs are actually just a skewer that we've cut in half to give us 2 legs. So we need to make sure that we put the holes in to glue these after the piece is fired. We can't fire them with them in because they'll burn away. So you need to just make sure that he is balanced on those feet. So you need to be really careful about the placement of the 2 skewers, and remembering that the feet will face forward and your bird will face kind of sideways. So we need to make sure that it is balanced and that it's not going to topple over, and that comes down to where we place those legs. So insert your skewers into the body and then put your body and those skewers into your legs and make sure that your bird is balancing and is not toppling over. Give those skewers a bit of a wiggle room because the clay shrinks as it dries, and we still need to be able to fit those skewers back in once it's dry. So just give them a bit of a wiggle just to make sure that there's plenty of space for those skewers to be glued in. Your Crazy Bigfoot bird is going to take a few weeks to dry, so we need to just let them lay flat. Make sure that you have put your initials on a part of the bird and a part of the feet underneath so that we know whose is whose. Enjoy, and can't wait to see them all painted and put together.